Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I am your host, Jay Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up, a lot to get to. Could tight end George Kittle get a contract extension this offseason? If the Niners do not want to pay him and they want him to play out the remainder of his deal, final year coming up here in 2025 before he's set to be a free agent, could the Niners draft a tight end with pick number 11? We're going to talk about the future of Fred Warner, and one Niners rookie from the 2024 draft class was awesome in his debut season in the National Football League. Let's start off with George Kittle. A big offseason question mark for San Francisco. Will the Niners sign George Kittle to a contract extension this offseason? 2025 is the final year of his deal after he had signed that 5-year, $75 million contract a few off seasons ago. He has a cap hit in 2025 of $22 million, a base salary of $14+. His career earnings sitting pretty, $62.5 million. And Kittle is going to turn 32 years old next November, but he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he is still one of the top tight ends in the game. And in the course of this franchise's history, he's the number one tight end who I think has ever put on a Niners uniform. And on top of that, heartbeat and leader of this team, plays his tail off every single week. So fun to watch him pancake dudes in the block game, but then pick up yards after the catch and breaking tackles. He's emerged as a really good option and weapon for Brock Purdy. Really good in the red zone as well. And he's really showing no signs of slowing down. And he has career-long Niner written all over him. But from the Niners' standpoint, this roster is getting a little bit older and a little bit expensive. So do you want to give a contract extension to a player who's starting to get a little bit long in the tooth? And do you want to pay an aging tight end top dollar? Here's my thing with tight ends. They can play and produce in the NFL for a very long time. And if the Niners sign Brock Purdy to a contract extension, they should also lock up George Kittle because he's been one of the top options for Purdy in the pass game, and they have this really good on-field kinship that I think can continue to be dominant for the foreseeable future. Since Purdy became the team's starting quarterback in 2022, George Kittle has 21 receiving touchdowns. And in his last 4 years, you look at the production that he's been able to put up, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2023. 90 targets, 65 catches, 1,020 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Honestly, he may have been better in 2024 with one fewer game played. Targets went up by 4, but receptions went up by 13, and the yards receiving went up. The touchdowns went up to 8 as well. And when Purdy replaced Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance in 2022, Kittle went on a tear for the final quarter of the season. I think he had 7 touchdowns once Purdy was inserted as the team's starting quarterback, 11 for the season. Really good production right there. When you take a gander at the highest paid tight ends per year in the National Football League, what will Kittle demand? That's a big question that obviously plays a role into the Niners' decision of whether or not to pay him or let him play out the remainder of his contract. Travis Kelce is making $17.1 million per year. TJ Hawkinson at $16.5. I think George Kittle at $14.25 right now is better than both of those players right now from a production and eye test standpoint. So is he going to want more than Travis Kelce to become the highest paid tight end in the National Football League? So that's what I wonder if these contract negotiations get going. How much will Kittle ask for, or will he be content with making something in that neighborhood of $13 to $15 million, which is still great compensation to allow the Niners to build up the rest of their team? Today's poll question is this. It'll also be the pinned comment on today's show. Should the Niners extend Kittle this offseason? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Share your feelings with me. I've thrown this out there on X a few times, and I started talking about this a couple of months ago. If the Niners do not want to pay George Kittle, and they're sitting there at number 11 overall, and their draft strategy is to go best player available, Can they pass up on Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, who has the size of George Kittle, the yak and tackle breaking ability of George Kittle? Not quite the blocker that Kittle is, but more positional versatility. He can line up in the regular tight end spot, flank to the tackle. He can line up as a slot receiver. He's lined up out wide. He's played H-back. He's been under center as a quarterback. He's been in the shotgun in wildcat formations. He can play H-back, fullback as well. This dude is a freak. He can go up and get it. He moves and looks like Gronk, has the size of George Kittle, and when he gets rumbling, look out. And look out for the Niners to show some interest in the all-world great prospect that is Tyler Warren out of Penn State. It is a pretty solid draft class at the tight end spot. I think Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland out of Michigan could go in the first round. Harold Fannin Jr. is a good tight end out of Bowling Green. Gunnar Helm made some really nice plays this year for Texas. And then there's Elijah Arroyo, who's more of that vertical seam-stretching tight end, but some teams are worried about a knee injury that he suffered a couple of years ago. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, and when you do that, CHATSPORTS, you get $20 off. Terms apply, first purchase only. Game Time specializes in last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed because prices drop as the event gets closer. Super Bowl is coming up. If you're going to travel to New Orleans, utilize the Game Time app. Also, thanks to Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find the best seats for the events that you want to go to. Instead of having to sort through thousands of tickets, they just give you the best ones. It's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. Good Western Conference rivalry. Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors. If you're watching the show from the Bay Area, you want to catch the dub, Steph Curry on the floor, you can do so. And you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. So we talked about George Kittle. Now, what is the future of All-Pro linebacker Fred Warner? Will the Niners restructure his deal this offseason, or will they sign him to a contract extension? The Niners will have somewhere in the neighborhood of $38 to $43 million in cap space this offseason. Warner's contract doesn't void until 2027. He'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2027, but he has no more guaranteed money left on his contract. And we've seen these financial gymnastics happen before with the player like Christian McCaffrey, with others, where if there aren't guaranteed dollars remaining, the Niners can create cap space by signing players to contract extensions or restructuring their contracts. And take a look at these numbers here. This would be the money saved with the Fred Warner restructure. The Niners in 2025 would save $12.3 million. In 2026, they would save just under $11 million. And in 2027, they would save more than $8 million. Fred Warner, like George Kittle, is a straight-up Niners legend who, like Kittle, is still playing at an elite level. 3 straight first-team All-Pros, 4 total, and I think like Kittle as well, he is a future Hall of Famer. And he has registered such great numbers throughout his career. He has missed 1 game in his entire career as well, which is very impressive considering he's had that durability despite the Niners making it so deep into the playoffs. And throughout his career, Fred Warner has played in 4 NFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowls. He's a lock to have more than 100 tackles every year. He's a lock to be so good in coverage and come through with some pass breakups and defend running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And his coverage grade continues to put the clamps on opposing players. The Niners haven't used him as a blitzer a lot, but he can certainly do that. Hopefully Robert Saleh uses and utilizes Fred Warner in that regard. And then the peanut punch, game-changing plays where he's able to force fumbles, generate turnovers. He is a once-in-a-generation type of player and a very, very special leader. Restructuring that deal does seem like a no-brainer, but you know what I would do if I were the Niners? I would just give him a contract extension. He's in his late 20s. You can play linebacker at a very high level for a long time. I would just reward him with the contract extension. He played after suffering that broken ankle in week 4 the rest of the season on that injury. And prior to that injury, he was still great after it, but before that, he was on his way to potentially becoming Defensive Player of the Year, and I don't think he is showing signs of decline either. I'll round out this segment with this. How about what Renardo Green was able to do in 2024? And looking ahead to April's 2025 NFL Draft, if the Niners can repeat what they did in 2024 and crush this draft, it'll do this organization wonders from a player development, depth, and overall roster standpoint. And the pressure's on for San Francisco to do well in the 2025 draft. And hopefully they can work off the momentum of what they accomplished in 2024 by picking players like Renardo Green. Second-round pick out of Florida State. I thought it was kind of a reach at the time. And then I watched him play and I said, this kid has instincts. This kid has toughness. He does a really good job in coverage. He's not afraid to play the run either. He was 12th in pass breakups among all cornerbacks this year, according to Sports Info Solutions. He only allowed a completion rate when targeted of 52%. If there is an area of improvement for Green going into his sophomore year, he did allow 20-plus yard catches in 6 games that he played this season. So the long ball, little bit of a weakness, but it's not like that Niners defense was the most well-coached unit. And I think that Robert Saleh is going to be able to maximize and continue the development for a player like Renardo Green. He also had a Pro Football Focus coverage grade of 74.3. That was 27th among 223 corners. And a part of my team building philosophy, any organization has to get a quarterback. They have to build the offensive line and the defensive line. That's where team building starts for me. And then you start to build to the outside. And after quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line, you have to find some stud cornerbacks, especially in a pass-happy era with a lot of the quarterback talent that we see. And the Niners have 2 really good young ones in Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green, and that's a good place to be. Be sure to give me a follow on social media. In addition to all of the content that I put up here on YouTube, I put up so much content on my social media pages at Chase_Senior on X and Instagram.